Salutations, everypup, and welcome to Chapter 40 of The One They Call Broccoli by Texiliaz. As always, the link to the fic will be in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's jump on into it. Chapter 40, Muscular versus Broccoli. With art. Chapter summary. Broccoli and Kota are cornered by Muscular. How will they get out of this one? And what is happening with the Zuku's quirk? Author's notes. Hello everyone, really excited for this one. There's also some art at the end, but I won't say any more than that because I don't want to spoil it. Anyway, Broccoli versus Muscular. Let's go! Broccoli's point of view. Class 1A and 1B had all met up in the forest for a fun game of courage, while Kota and Broccoli had instead settled to head out to the kids' secret hideout up on the cliff. It was very peaceful up there, and they spent some time simply watching the stars. He worried about the kid getting cold, considering he didn't have any thick fur to protect him from the chilly night air like Broccoli had. But the kid didn't seem bothered by it. In fact, he looked more at ease, sitting up here on the cliffside, than Broccoli had ever seen him before. But then, the calm moment was broken by the smell of smoke and blue flames erupting from the forest below. And then there was a message coming from Mandalay, her voice sounding frantic. We're being attacked by 2 villains. It's possible that there are more. Everyone that can move, get back to camp immediately. Both Kota and Broccoli had stood up in alarm and were just about to head back to camp when they were cornered by someone entering the cliffside. Danger sense was currently going crazy inside Broccoli's head, meaning whoever this was, their intentions were far from nice. Oh, what do we have here? The masked man hummed, looking between Kota and Izuku. I tried searching for a place with a nice view, but I ended up finding a face not on our list. Broccoli immediately leaped to stand in front of Kota, arching his back and growling at this stranger. He had no idea who he was, but considering the fire and the timing of this man showing up, it couldn't be good news. Not to mention how Danger Sense still wasn't letting up. In fact, it just kept getting worse. Instead of being threatened by Broccoli's display, though, the man just laughed mockingly. Oh, now that's adorable! What you gonna do, little one? Bite my ankle? The man mocked him, leaning down to face the cat before turning his attention back to Kota. You know, the report didn't mention a kid being here, but what's one more brat to get rid of? That was all Broccoli needed to hear before he leaped up and scratched the man right across his masked face. The man reeled back in shock, clutching at his now broken mask, which had been cut right down the middle. Then the man let out another crazed laugh as he removed the mask and threw it aside, revealing his one amused eye, the other one being replaced with a mechanical one. You... Kota suddenly whimpered from behind him, and Broccoli looked back to find the kid trembling with fear, his face ghostly pale as he stared at the man. It's you. You're Muscular. The one who my mom and dad... You killed them! Broccoli's heart sank all the way down to his stomach. This was the one who had killed the water host duo? This was Muscular? He only knew a little bit about the villain, but what he knew wasn't pretty. He was known to be a ruthless killer, and they were now trapped on a mountain with him. Oh, so you're some hero's brat? The villain hummed, almost uncaringly, not even bothering to ask which heroes it was he had killed. Makes it all the easier for me to get rid of you, he then added, before launching himself at Kota, who shrieked in fear. Broccoli didn't even think as he moved, one for all coursing through his veins as he turned back into a human to block the attack. The blow had his teeth rattling and limbs trembling, and it shot them scaringly close to the edge of the cliff. But at least Kota was standing safe and sound behind him. What? You are... Kota sobbed, voice filled with disbelief as he reached out a trembling hand to Izuku. No time. Stay behind me, Izuku gritted out, not taking his eyes off the villain. There was literally no time. Izuku could feel himself already stretching over his limit. Having pushed himself too hard during training left his body exhausted, and it begged him to change back. but he pushed through. He couldn't fail Kota.
You,
Muscular said, voice laced with interest.
now isn't that a surprise? You're one of the brats on the list. You're the one called Midoriya, right?
He laughed, not even bothering to wait for a response as he continued.
Yeah, you and that Bakugo kids are the only ones we were told to bring back alive. Damn, that means I can't kill you. But the boss never said how damaged you could be when we brought you back.
Izuku barely had any time to wonder what that meant, barely had any time to consider the horrifying fact that both him and Kachan were on some sort of wanted list before another fist was flung in his direction. Izuku's mind blanked with white-hot pain as he was flung into the side of the mountain, back connecting painfully with the rocky mountain wall. At least he hadn't been flown off another cliff. But still. Ow! Izuku's whole body screamed with pain as he got up on shaking limbs, before he channeled his quirk and flung forward to punch the villain with 100% of One For All. Only for his quirk to do absolutely nothing. He'd gone at him with full strength, but it didn't even make the villain stumble. And then he was once again painfully thrown to the ground. Stop! Kota cried out from somewhere behind him, but Izuku could barely hear him through the ringing of his ears. Everything was blurry, and he was sure he must have broken one of his arms, considering the sharp pain coming from the limb. There was something wet that gushed over Izuku, and the sensation had him reel back and get back to reality. He looked up to find Kota using his water quirk, on the villain. It was weak, though, barely any stronger than a water gun. Water hose! Did you torment my mom and dad like this before you killed them, too? Kota cried out, what hands trembling before him.
Huh? Seriously? Your parents were those heroes?
Muscular laughed, sounding almost gleeful.
They're the reason I lost my left eye. It surely must be fate that I get to kill their brat.
He could see the villain turning towards Kota, and he didn't even hesitate as he got back into the fight, broken arm and all. But despite how much he tried, despite going 100% and beyond, Izuku still didn't stand a chance. All he did was get more and more beat up, both from using his quirk and from the villain's attacks. No matter what he tried to do, he just couldn't land a single hit on the villain. His mind desperately tried to think of a way to counter the man's quirk, all while fighting for his life and protecting the child behind him. But nothing seemed to work. Not even a surprise attack from Blackwhip, where he threw rocks from behind the villain and hit him straight in the back of his head, had the villain do more than stumble. The man would just shake it all off with a maniac laugh, and it was like the man was protected by a full-body suit of armor. Danger Sense was also no help in this fight, only making things harder as it gave him a constant headache from all the malicious intent pulsating from the villain. To make matters worse, Izuku could feel his quirk burning at him, begging him to switch back into his other form. But Izuku couldn't change back now. If he did, they would all be dead. The pain continued to get worse until Izuku suddenly felt it shift inside of him. Something was happening, but he wasn't sure what. He didn't question it, as the pain eased and his senses almost seemed to improve. His shoes ripped, but it wasn't hard for him to move. On the contrary, he felt like it was actually easier without them on. Kota gasped behind him, but Izuku barely heard him as he rushed forward to scratch at the villain with his claws. Wait, claws? He shook his head, deciding not to think about it as he leapt back and landed on his feet with more grace than he could ever remember having as a human before. Something twitched behind him, and it took a while for Izuku to realize it was his tail. But he wasn't in his cat form! Izuku also noticed the blood on his hands, and it only took him a second to find the reason why. Looking up at the villain, Izuku saw that his claws had actually managed to pierce through the villain's defense, leaving bright red marks in their wake right across his chest. His ears twitched on top of his head, alerting him of the villain moving just before he was about to attack.
What the fuck kind of quirk do you have? None of the reports mentioned this cat bullshit!
The villain screamed out in frustration, as Izuku just kept avoiding his attacks, thanks to his newfound senses and balance. Instead of answering, Izuku focused on channeling One for All into his next attack. In the corner of his eye, he saw Nana move behind the villains. Behind the villain. The vestiges had been circling them for a while, desperately trying to find any way they could help. And seeing her now, Izuku suddenly got an idea. Nana! Push him, now! Izuku yelled out to the vestige, who gave him a surprised look which quickly turned into one of determination.
Huh? Who are you talking to?
The villain asked dumbly, turning his head slightly to see if there was someone else there to ambush him. What he couldn't see was not just one, but several vestiges all launching themselves at him, pushing him with all their might and causing him to tumble. Before he could reach the ground, Izuku charged forward, but instead of punching him, he decided to copy Broccoli's trademark move, and he scratched the man right across his one functioning eye, wincing at the feel and sight of blood gushing out of the wound. The man roared with pain, hand coming up to claw at his now useless eye as he swore loudly.
You fucking bastard! You're dead! You're so fucking dead! Screw the mission! I will kill you!
The villain screamed, voice filled with agony and anger. And the man was blindly fumbling around, clearly not seeing where he was going until... Wait! Look out! Izuku called out, watching in horror as the man stepped right off the side of the cliff and fell down. There was a scream, then a loud crash, and then... silence. Did Izuku just kill a man? Is he dead? Kota asked quietly from behind him, making Izuku jump in surprise. Right, Kota. He had to make sure the kid was okay. I don't know, Izuku answered honestly, but I think we should head back to camp. The villain mentioned being after one of my classmates, so I need to let the teachers know. Are you okay to walk? And, who are you, exactly? Kota asked, looking so small as he stared up at Izuku with wide, confused eyes. Izuku gave him the brightest smile he could muster, hoping it made him look reassuring. Despite the black eye and the blood he could feel running down the side of his face, he probably looked like a mess. I'm Midoriya Izuku, but also, Broccoli, he told the kid with an awkward laugh. But, please don't tell anyone about that, though. It's kind of a secret. He chuckled nervously, lifting a finger to his lips. All right. Kota nodded, still looking unsure. Izuku's smile softened, and he kneeled down, back towards the kid. Now, come on, get on my back, and let's get out of here. Kota did just that, wrapping his arms around his shoulders as he climbed onto his back before Izuku got up and ran back to the campsite. It was a good thing his legs were all right. What Izuku failed to realize, probably due to his quirk being weirdly at ease, was that he still wasn't completely human. His ears twitched above his head, making him hyper-aware of everything around them, and the dark forest was strangely bright, despite it being night and them being far away from the fire.
Midoriya?
Izuku came to an abrupt stop at the sound of the familiar voice, and he turned around to face his teacher, who was staring at Izuku and Kota with a shell-shocked expression. Shota's point of view. Shota just finished fighting that weird scarred villain and was on his way to find Mandalay and help his students when he stumbled upon Midoriya. The kid was far away from where he should be, which was in his room, sleeping. What was the kid doing out here? And why did he look like he had been run over by a damn truck? Something moved behind the student, and Shota tensed until he saw that what appeared to be a tail. And it looked like it was connected to his student? Scanning the kid over, Shota finally noticed the fluffiness of the boy. His whole body seemed to be covered in a light layer of fur, some the same shade of his skin with patches of green. And were those claws on his hands? And cat ears? Midoriya, are you okay? What happened? Shota asked, feeling both overwhelmed and done with much about everything at this point. He had a feeling he knew exactly why the kid looked like he did. Well, minus the bruises. He had no idea what could have happened to make him look like that. But these new features on his students created a picture that Shota very much did not like to think about. It implied his suspicions had somehow been right, and he very much wished he wasn't. Shota shook his head, focusing back on the present. There were more urgent matters right now, like the fact that his kid was babbling hysterically in front of him, seemingly being on an adrenaline high. There was a villain. I don't know why, but they were after Kachan, and everyone else is at risk of being killed, the kid cried out, making Shota's heart drop. Before Shota could even get the chance to process that or say anything, Izuku suddenly dumped a crying Kota into his arms. Please, take care of Kota while I warn Mandalay. I need her to tell everyone about the danger, he said urgently, already getting ready to run away. Midoriya! The man snapped, finally causing the boy to slow down and listen. He wanted to scream. He wanted to ask questions, mainly about his injuries and why he looked like that. The kid looked like he was seconds away from crumbling over, and he looked like him. Was it due to a quirk, or... No. No, Shota already knew why he had those. He'd suspected something for a long while. Broccoli had left with Dakota, and now here his student was, together with the kid, and Broccoli was nowhere to be found. It was obvious what was going on, and he felt so incredibly stupid for not digging deeper when, somewhere deep inside, he'd known. But to actually see it, right in front of him, he had a hard time believing it. Even now, not to mention how many questions he had. But Shota also realized there was no time for that right now. If what Midoriya said was true, then all of his students were in grave danger. He couldn't waste precious seconds on asking questions. Instead, Shota swallowed whatever feelings he might have and turned to this boy sternly. If you're going to Mandalay, please tell her to relay a message to all of the students. Shota took a deep breath before continuing. You are hereby granted permission to engage in combat, he said, hating how he had to give such an order, but also knowing why it was necessary. He'd much rather get punished for authorizing self-defense rather than seeing his students die. Got it! Midoriya said hastily, with a nod that caused his ears to flop slightly at the top of his head, all while his tail twitched anxiously behind him. Don't think about it. The kid was getting ready to leave, and Shota blindly reached out for him, grabbing his one good arm in a firm grip. But once you've told her that, Shota added sternly, glaring down at the kid and hoping he understood how serious this was. You are to head straight back to the camp. Got it, problem child? Please, for once in your life, just listen to me and come back safe. I will, Midoriya answered, before shaking Shota off and running into the forest. Shota let out a shaking breath, trying not to outward panic or run after the kid. The sobbing child in his arms helped to ground him while he steeled himself before turning around and heading back towards camp. He knew Midoriya would be able to reach Mandalay much faster than Shota ever could, even with those injuries. The kid's quirk made him incredibly fast. But even so, the only reason Midoriya could even move right now was because of adrenaline, and Shota knew that as soon as he relaxed, the pain would catch up with him and he'd be unable to move. Hopefully, that would happen after he got back to camp. Because he would. Shota refused to even entertain any other idea. The kid would be fine. He'd return to Shota, and then they would talk once all of this was over. They'd talk, and Shota would get his answers. Katsuki's point of view. We've just confirmed one of the targets to be Kachan. Kachan, please stay safe and avoid combat.
What the fuck? First they tell us to fight, then they tell him, and only him, that he wasn't allowed...
What the fuck? First they tell us to fight, then they tell him, and only him, that he wasn't allowed to? What sort of bullshit is that? Besides, how the hell was Katsuki supposed to not fight when they were currently facing off a crazy-toothed villain? The bastard was annoying as fuck and just wouldn't go down. No matter what him and Half did, it just wasn't enough. Their quirks did absolutely nothing. And as if this evening couldn't get any worse, Deku had appeared and... Wait, was the goddamn cat ears on this head? What the fuck? At least they'd brought with them an out-of-control dark shadow that absolutely slaughtered the teeth bastard, much to Katsuki's delight. Once that was taken care of, Katsuki got a better look at Deku. The piece of shit was being carried by the octopus guy and looked like he had one foot in the grave. And the new tail kept twitching behind him, making him look even stupider than normal. Just what the fuck was going on with Deku's weird quirk to make him look like that? And why now? Didn't he know they had no time for this cat bullshit? Both Kachan and I seem to be their targets, Deku said, making Katsuki growl. Why was he paired up with Deku? I don't know why they want us, the boy continued hastily, but let's try to keep out of their sights for now and get Kachan back to camp where it's safe. The damned cat then had the audacity to try and take charge, despite looking all beat up and not even being able to stand on his own 2 feet, needing the damn octopus to carry him. And he insisted on them protecting Katsuki, as if he was the one needing protection instead of him.
Hold on! You said both you and I were targets! How come you keep blabbering about only protecting me?
Katsuki snapped, glaring daggers at the idiot. Seriously, did he not care about also being a target? Stupid self-sacrificing cat Deku! I'm already carrying Midoriya, the octopus explained with a shrug. He's safe. Right, yes, Deku agreed sheepishly, which only pissed Katsuki off even more. Anyway, let's get moving. And moving they did, and for a while, everything seemed to be going smoothly. But then, well, Katsuki wasn't sure what had happened. One moment he had been walking behind the others with Birdface at his back, and they met up the Frog Girl and Brownface. But then, the next thing he knew, he was swept up and put inside some sort of ball. He tried banging on the wall of his enclosure, tried to scream and use his quirk, but nothing had worked. Next to him, he could see two similar marble-shaped objects that he was trapped in, and he could just vaguely make out the form of Birdface and Deku. But while Birdface was fighting to get out, Deku was just laying there. It seemed like he'd hit whatever limit he had and had transformed into his useless little cat form instead of whatever hybrid thing he'd had going on before. And he was unconscious.
Fuck!
Katsuki swore as he once again tried to break out. He could hear a commotion outside, but he couldn't see far enough to make anything out. Then a giant hand reached inside, pulling out Tokoyami's marble, but just barely missing Katsuki's and Deku's. Then, the next thing he knew, he was released in what looked to be a shady bar, and there were villains all around them. Double fuck, Katsuki thought, before he launched at the hand bastard closest to him, quirk ready. But to his utter fury, he didn't get to blow the shitty face up, and was instead restrained and put in a chair. Meanwhile, the hand man walked up to Deku still in conscious form, before lifting him up in a four-fingered grip.
Put him down, you bastard!
Katsuki roared, tugging against his restraints.
I swear if you hurt him, I'll kill you all!
We're not going to hurt him, Handman scoffed, before turning his back on Katsuki and walking away.
After all, I believe Sensei has waited long enough to meet this one. Don't worry, we'll take good care of Midoriya from now on. We'll deal with you later.
Katsuki continued to scream and thrash, but nothing he said or did helped. The next thing he knew, Handman gave Deku to the fog bastard, who walked away with his friend. With Deku. And Katsuki had no idea where they were taking him. Aw, couldn't he stay? I wanted to pet the kitty, the blonde girl cooed.
Sensei's orders. He's very valuable, and Sensei wanted to be the first one to meet him. Don't worry, he'll join us soon enough,
the handman said confidently, like he actually believed that shit.
You think Deku would ever join you?
Bakugo snarls.
Of course! After all, we have someone who I'm sure will be able to persuade him,
Handman chuckled. Just what the fuck were they planning? The art is Art of Izuku's hybrid form. Author's notes. I am so excited to show you all this hybrid form of Izuku. I've had it in mind ever since the beginning, and it's been killing me to keep it hidden for so long, lol. The drawing was something I decided to do last minute, but I'm really happy with the result. Used a frame from one of the episodes as base, and then went from there. So, Dadzawa knows now. Just how will that affect him, now that both his student/kid and cat has gone missing? And what will he tell his husband? It's a mess, lol. Hopefully you enjoyed reading the reveal, and will continue to enjoy the rest of the drama. Poor Bakugo, lol. Any ideas what Sensei might want with Tezuku? I know a lot of you already have it figured out, but I love your theories, and I'm super excited for the next chapter and introducing All for One. Anyway, enough rambling. Thank you everyone for your continued patience, comments, and support. I love reading all your comments. It makes me so incredibly happy that so many of you are enjoying the story so far. And OMG, we are 40 chapters in? How? This is supposed to be a short 5 chapters, LMAO. Okay, again, enough rambling. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. And that's a wrap on chapter 40. 7 chapters till we're caught up with the author. I hope you all enjoy this so much. I actually love this one. I love the reveal with Shota. Oh my gosh. Shota knows now. Shota knows now. Oh my gosh. Anyway, please go show the original author, Texiliaz, some love. Please leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. They make me so happy. Please leave me specifically hate comments, and I'll shout you out in the next video. Speaking of, I have a few people I need to shout out. So shout out to Faye Are Cryptids 2, which is the only person who left a hate comment, which is, no, please don't divorce me. I promise, I can do good. I can do good. Please don't divorce me. Anyway. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, pups.